Hello and welcome to the PNE podcast. My name is Jack Jacob and I'm your host. In this series, which is our first series titled The Person Behind the Job Title, I'm joined by a range of guests that are senior leaders from across the public sector. We'll be talking through some of their career journeys, some highlights and some major things they're proud of, but also some of their bugbears and lowest points, not only in their career but also their personal lives. In our first episode, I'm joined by James Devine, who's the Chief Executive Officer of Medway NHS Foundation Trust. James and I have a fascinating conversation about his career journey and what's led him up to becoming the CEO of the trust. We talk through some of his major wins and some of the stuff that he's really most proud of in his career, but also some of the more sadder moments and perhaps more of the pivotal moments in his life. One, namely being the moment that his mum sadly passed away when he was just 25 years old. And that really set itself as a grounding moment in James's career where he decided to focus and knuckle down and make something of himself. Please do enjoy the next 50 minutes where we get to know the person behind the job title. Hi everybody, before we get into this conversation, just want to give a massive shout out to Justar, who are sponsoring this episode of the PNE podcast. Justar help NHS organisations to recruit nurses and other clinical staff using the latest digital marketing strategies and social media platforms like Instagram, Facebook and Twitter. To be very clear, Justar are not a recruitment agency, but an NHS specialist digital marketing agency that primarily focus on marketing trust recruitment needs to fulfill recruitment teams' pipelines with both experienced and graduate candidates through targeted online campaigns. Alongside this, they've recently built from scratch a next-generation candidate pipeline management system which allows Trust to track both the marketing campaign engagement but also the status of candidates within the recruitment process. Justar recently completed a 12-month project with Norfolk and Norwich University hospitals where they delivered 108 nursing appointments through targeted digital marketing campaigns with an average cost of each hire of only around £350. They work now with over 30 trusts across the UK. So if you do have permanent recruitment challenges, particularly around nursing and clinical staff, please visit just-r.com/PNE. That's just-r.com/PNE to arrange some time to speak with Rachel and her team about how they can help you achieve a 21st century approach to recruiting your clinical workforce. So the series is going to be called The Person Behind the Job Title, and trying to kind of debunk the myth that people with big job titles are potentially difficult to speak to or scary to speak to, but actually it's just another human behind it and someone that should just be treated like that. So I want to kind of just understand your background a little bit and understand kind of what led you up to becoming a CEO, especially of an NHS trust. So let's just start with kind of a bit about you, where you grew up, schooling, so on and so forth.
Okay, yeah, good question. So I grew up in Medway Towns, which is in Kent, so southeast of Kent. And school-wise, I always say that I kind of just existed at school. I wasn't really a high performer or a low performer. I was sort of in that middle group that just got by, I guess. So yeah, I went to local secondary school. Yeah, grades were sort of okay, but not amazing. I didn't go to college or uni. I went straight into work at 16. Yeah. The default was if I didn't do that, then I'd have to go and work for my dad's painting company.
Right. Okay.
And
you didn't fancy being a painter then, no?
I knew that I didn't want to work outside.
So you was born in Medway. Yeah. So was you born in the hospital that you're now chief executive of?
No. So right, okay. They had two hospitals in Medway. They had one in Chatham and one in Gillingham. And this one's in Gillingham. And in about 1999, something like that, the other hospital shut down and was morphed into this one, so it became a bigger one here. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, that hospital is now a housing estate.
Right. So that's actually similar to mine. So I was born in Crawley Hospital, which is now shut down, and it's now East Surrey is the main hospital. So you kind of drifted your way through school. So you weren't kind of academic as such.
No, definitely not. I as I said, I think just did enough to get by, really.
Yeah. So what was your kind of dream job going up?
Played football. I didn't really have one until I got to about sort of 13, 14. I wanted to be a policeman.
Right.
But at that time, you had a height restriction.
Right.
So I think I was too short. And then I had a bit of a growth spurt. And then I didn't want to be a policeman anymore. I felt I wanted to be a solicitor, but I didn't think I was clever enough.
So did you grow kind of, you're in a big leadership role now, so did you show leadership qualities growing up, did you think?
Probably, yeah. Probably through necessity. So yeah. I guess growing up, was quite an independent sort of time. It wasn't like I would say it wasn't a loving family. It was like so mum and dad separated when we were about 10, and my dad remarried, and we spent a bit of time in between sort of my dad's house and then my mum's house.
How did that affect you at 10?
I don't really sort of recall it really affecting me. I know it affected my brother and my sister. Because we talk about that a little bit now. But it wasn't really something that affected me. I just kind of got on with it. And I think I was always very independent, and probably still am really, probably too much. But I think you kind of learn that you're not going to get stuff done for you. So I felt I had to just do stuff myself. So even really small things like ironing your school shirts. I remember doing that when I was sort of 13, 14.
Same. So my mum and dad broke up when I was 2. So I never remember them being together, and it would be actually quite weird to think of them being together now. But my mum owned her own business, so she was gone before 8 and not back till 7. So when I grew up, especially not necessarily primary age, but certainly in secondary school, I remember always making my own packed lunch, always doing my own ironing, and I was in the Army Cadets as well. So when I grew up, you was in the Army Cadets.
Yeah.
So it kind of, you grow a love for ironing, don't you? Like, I'm really particular about ironing.
Jack, I would not leave the house with a creased t-shirt. Josh ironed my shirts once. And I was like, no.
Train tracks.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right. You can't be dealing with the train tracks. Interesting. So moving on slightly. So going forward then. So you started, your first role was at Medway, wasn't it? In the hospital?
It wasn't in the hospital, but it was for the trust. Yeah. Right.
Okay.
It was called a health authority then. So it was July 1996.
When I was 3, make you feel old.
Make you feel old now. Cheers. Yeah. Although I look younger than you, so.
Oh yeah, nice try, mate. Nice try.
So July 96. It was for a school health department, which was based in a GP surgery in Rainham, so about 5 miles from the hospital. Loved it. It was my first job was putting medical results onto a new massive computer.
Yeah, like data entry.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. School health immunisation records. So needles and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So I did that initially for about 15 hours a week, and I was studying for an MVQ at the same time, and then I got offered another 15 hours at Chatham site, and then 7 hours in a Strood site. So I used to use my lunch times to walk between the 3 to get to them.
Yeah, nice.
And that made up a full-time job. And I remember my first paycheck was £214.
You never forget that.
I felt rich. And I remember saving it for about 2 months, and then took the decision. I rang my mum from a phone box in Rainham and said, I'm going to move out.
How did she take that?
She was upset, but she knew I was independent. She knew that.
Yeah.
And I've always been quite sort of strong-willed, and if I've said I'm going to move out, I'm going to move out.
Yeah.
And I think they all expected me to last for about a month and then go back home. But
you never gone back?
No, I never went back. No, I remember moving in, thinking, got my own space now. I can do what I like. I felt rich because I had a couple of £100.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And before all the responsibility, mate?
Yeah, but it was great. I mean, I was 16. I stayed there for about 2.5 years.
Oh, you was only 16 at that point. That is young to move out.
Yeah, I moved out. Wow. Yeah, it was sort of October, November time.
Yeah. I moved out at 18, and I thought that was young.
Yeah.
But I say I moved out. I was asked to leave basically because as you, you can probably imagine, I was a bit of a live wire back then, and 18 going out. It was just more so I kept going out and then bringing everyone back to mine for after parties, and like somehow my mum would sleep through them, but then would come down the next day and like the downstairs would just be trashed. And so so she kindly, well, we had had a bit of a Barney, and then it was decided to but like it's definitely, I've never moved back in. I could never live back at home. I could never ever live back at home. It would be weird now. I've got 3 kids, but I could never move back at home. So when did you kind of enter then into your first leadership role?
So probably when I was about 26, 27, something like that. So so when I was in my first job, I did it for about 18 months. Then I was asked to go and do a particular bit of work on the hospital site in sort of early 2000, and then that gave me a first exposure into HR. Which I did later that year, so year 2000, and then sort of worked my way up the ranks, as it were, until I got my first sort of leadership role, HR manager, when I was 26 or 27. A couple of years before that, my mum died when I was 25, and that was like a big moment where you think, right, actually, I'm gonna sort of just go for it. And
I was actually going to ask, was there any kind of specific moments in your life that really defined you or made you focus? So I assume that was one of them. Yeah,
it certainly was. I mean, got a phone call on a Saturday night, said, she's in hospital, fallen over, and then died on the Monday morning. So it's very quick.
Wow, yeah.
And I don't think it really hits you at that time, and sort of till a few months later, or even years later, actually, where you kind of think, actually, it did act as a real moment to think, I'm going to see how far I can go and try and make a bit of a career. And then 18 months later, I got my first sort of leadership role, HR manager role in this hospital. And I remember you jump sort of salary by a few £1,000s, and all of a sudden it opens up this sort of new lifestyle, and I don't know. I guess on the flip side, it's kind of where the kind of imposter syndrome starts as well, because you think, actually, this is probably not what was meant for me. If I think back, I didn't do very well at all.
Do you suffer with that now? Because you're clearly a young CEO for the NHS, and I feel comfortable to say that to you because I'm 26 myself. I'm a young business owner, and I'm young to lead a team. Do you have that imposter syndrome now?
Yeah. We had a conversation about that this morning, actually, with somebody else. I do. I still look at my, when you're sending an email and it says James Devine, Chief Executive, I still look at that and think, God, that's me. Not because I don't think I'm not doing a good job or could be better or whatever. It's more about, as you say, I'm a young chief exec compared to sort of others, but at the same time, I look at it and think, actually, it wasn't something that I thought about doing. I never thought about wanting to be a chief exec. It was just opportunity, timing, and support, really.
Well, with that though, where did your drive come from then? Because you don't become an NHS CEO by accident. You've got to have certain qualities, certain principles, you've got to hold yourself in a certain way. So where does that come from then? Where does that drive come from?
I think it's about, I always talk about personal ambition, and it's not about self. It's about, why do you work in the health sector? Why do you do what you do? And if you get to the root cause, most people, I think, work in health because they genuinely are wanting to improve healthcare for a population. And I think about why do we do this job? And the nice thing about sort of being in the chief exec role is that you shape. You're completely accountable for shaping services for 600,000 people that rely on this hospital. And when you say it like that, you can be almost consumed by this overwhelming responsibility. But at the same time, like, what an amazing responsibility to have, that you're able to shape something so important to people as healthcare. Most people do it because they want to improve what we do, and patient outcomes and well-being staff, all the obvious things that you have to say, but more so with genuine sort of passion for wanting to do it.
Yeah.
So it wasn't something that I said, I want to be a chief exec. But when the opportunity came up, I thought, I always say yes to opportunities, because you kind of think, would you ever get them again? And
so was you was deputy chief executive at this time, though, wasn't you? So you was exec director for HR and OD and deputy chief executive. Yeah.
So I'd done that for a couple of years prior to taking on the acting chief exec role when the previous chief executive left. And that drive, I think, as you said, in the deputy role, certainly was around what are the things that we need to improve on, getting a really good plan, and then getting people behind you to deliver that plan. And we no doubt have improved the hospital, from 4 or 5 years ago to where it's at today. Absolutely much more to do as ever, but I think the drive comes from being in a place where you can make it better. It's not a finished article where there's nothing to do.
Of course,
there's absolutely stuff to do, and everything that you touch has a people outcome, has a patient outcome, or a staff benefit outcome. And I think that all the time you hold those kind of 2 or 3 things as your core driver, I don't think you can really go wrong. Really, that has to stay at the centre of why we're doing it. Makes sense.
So with regards to staying on that kind of leadership slant, then, do you think that being a leader or having that, what it takes, is a natural ability, or is it something that's taught and cultivated?
Yeah, I think the real attributes of leaders are developed in you. I think they are there. I often say that the job of a good leader is seeing something in someone that person doesn't yet see in themselves. Yeah. And from your mentors, they're there to bring out bits in you that you either didn't know you had, or you did know you had, but you don't have the confidence to bring out. Yeah. And I think that is in you. I don't think you can be taught the academic side of leadership. You can be taught particular quotes and frameworks of reference, all important things. But I think at the heart of a really good leader are some really sort of personal drivers and personal ambition.
Sure. So did you have that then? Did you have someone that cultivated that in you? Did you have someone that mentored you to become, and are you still currently mentored?
Yes, I always have a mentor. Yeah. More
one of the most important things I ever done was get a mentor and a coach. Yeah,
100%. I would always be an advocate for mentoring and coaching, and they're 2 different things, mentoring and coaching. I would absolutely recommend doing that. And certainly in healthcare, I've always had someone outside of healthcare as well, so that they're not bringing sort of a potentially biased view of the world. I know my very, very first boss, who I still keep in touch with now, so 24 years ago or something, I was certainly someone who sort of gave you that initial belief that despite having a bit of a sort of challenging childhood and not doing a normal sort of college, university route, I think she brought out a confidence in me that I probably didn't know I had. Yeah. And then sort of as you get more senior, you get in touch with more people. I think it becomes less about those professional mentors and more about the personal people that you have around you. I mean, from Jordan and the kids, they drive you because you want to do well for them. But they are supportive of you when you're working late and having tough days or tough weeks, and you always need that person that you can pick up the phone to, without judging. You might not have spoken to them for ages, just to say, yeah, I get it. And you're not, you're absolutely doing the right thing, or sometimes you're not doing the right thing and you're being a bit of a, idiot. Yeah. I've done that. I've called my mentor about stuff that I've done, and he said, if you'd have done that to me,
I'd have walked out on you. You know, things that from a management perspective, where, you know, I'd perhaps been a bit harsh, or I'd been a bit this and so, yeah, I think you need someone that can call you out on something. And I think one of the key things is to not have an ego about feedback, and have an ego about criticism, and have an ego about, you know, I almost like hearing the negative feedback, because that's the stuff that's going to improve me. Yeah. I don't know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, if I do a 360 or any sort of feedback, your mind, or my mind, is always drawn to the negative. Now, some of that is a good thing, because you can use it as a driver. Sometimes you've got to be really cautious about using it in a way that reinforces that imposter syndrome that you're talking about. Of course, yeah. There's a big difference in those leadership roles, not to, as you say, have an ego, or abuse that positional power that you get when you become a leader. I always think the biggest learning in the chief exec role, or even in a director or a company owner role, is we underestimate how much we're being watched by other people. So, you know, if you're a bit harsh with someone, and other people see that, you know, they will copy that behaviour. And that's when you can run the risk of creating a culture in an organisation that is not a healthy one. Sure.
So rather than judgment, more about people copying that behaviour in terms of being watched.
So look, academically, your behaviour breeds behaviour.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, people copy and emulate what they think their leaders are wanting from them. And I think there's a real balance in being a leader, of someone who absolutely holds people to account for, you know, delivery and non-delivery of things, but equally doesn't lose that human side of, you know, people go through things that affect their performance. They go through things that affect their temperament or their mood. And I think good leaders spot that in the people that they're working with, and don't have to, you know, go in all guns blazing. They can just take the time to, I don't know, walk with someone and genuinely listen about what's going on in their life. Yeah. Well, how many times do people say to you, "How are you, Jack?" And you go, "Yeah, I'm fine, thanks."
You stress to the max or whatever,
Exactly, yeah. And sometimes you need people who can be that person that you can pick up the phone to, or be a good leader where you recognise those things in people.
Yeah, makes sense. So, what's perhaps in some of the kind of more prouder moments of your career then?
Oh, proud moments. Probably, a few kind of stick out. I went to university when I was 28.
Yeah. Did you go to Cambridge? Did I see on your LinkedIn you went to Cambridge?
Yeah, sort of. I'll come to that.
All right.
Don't big me up, Jack. That's yeah. So I went to University of Kent, to do a master's, knowing full well that I wouldn't get a director job unless I had a master's.
Yeah. So that was kind of it's a prerequisite, right? You have to have a degree to be on a board, yeah?
That's right, yeah. So that's why I went there. So part-time, 2 years, every 6 Friday, Saturday, Sunday for 2 years, studied masters. So a proud moment at the end, you know, throwing the big hat in the air and doing all the things that you normally do when you're about 20. I did it sort of 10 years later. So I was personally very, very proud of that. In terms of professionally, I think some of the, I guess, really simple initiatives that we've implemented along the way that have had a massive impact for staff. So we were the first trust in the English healthcare system to implement something called the Employer with Heart Charter.
The what? The Employer Winning Heart Charter?
No, Employer with Heart.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
What this is it's a charity, and it supports men and women who have premature babies. Okay. So basically, if you have a premature baby, often people don't get paid for their entire maternity leave because the babies come along, in some cases 10, 15 weeks early, yeah? So what we said is, if you have your baby early, we will pay you normal pay until the point that you would have gone off on maternity leave. Okay. So basically, when you have a premature baby, you don't need to worry about money. Yeah. For me personally, that was a big thing. Yeah. It would affect probably less than 20 people a year at Medway, but it was huge. And other trusts followed, other private commercial organisations followed, and it became this really big thing, to the point that, not because of us, but because of the charity, this year, the government legislation was changed to include pay for women in particular who have premature babies.
Incredible.
Now, that is the fact that we were sort of 2 years ahead and said that it was wrong, that people were having to worry about money when they're dealing with a premature baby, is we didn't feel that was right.
Yeah.
The other one, I think, and I'll come on to your Cambridge point, was when I arrived here at Medway in October 2016, I've always had this big issue that we pay in the NHS to a banding structure. Band 1 has previously been our lowest band, so we used to employ sort of housekeepers and some of our porters. So people who are doing really tough jobs.
Labour intensive, heavily,
really, really tough. In some cases, gruesome, grueling jobs, and being paid really low salaries for doing it. So we made a commitment that we would abolish Band 1.
Okay.
And we uplifted everybody on a Band 1 up to a Band 2. So we increased their pay to recognise that they were doing a really important job, and we felt that they were being paid too low a wage. And for me, it was a small amount of money, but it affected about 450 staff. And we didn't make a big song and dance about it. We didn't do much promotion about it. We just wrote to them all to tell them that we're doing this because we think that the work you do is really, really important. And they're the sorts of things that I would be really proud of.
What did that do for morale? Because that's an incredible thing to do, and actually a thing that's probably overlooked by so many organisations outside and inside the public sector.
We forget sometimes that, to your point about leadership, but certainly in healthcare, we work in a people business. Yeah, if we treat our people well, they'll provide good care, good services. Lots of research to support that. But more than that, it's about recognising that people are doing some really tough jobs, and they should be paid as best we can to do that. So for morale, I think what happened is that most of it was mostly housekeepers who were affected, thought that there was a catch. Why are you doing this? A bit cynical.
Yeah. No one's ever helped us out before.
Yeah, a little bit, I think. So we got past that quite quickly, and you start to see perhaps they then believe there's a bit more of a human side in sort of the management of a hospital, because they're actually recognising that actually we do a good and important job, and they're giving us a bit more money. And again, we underestimate, and you'll appreciate this from your sort of childhood and upbringing, that a few quid when you're earning sort of a lower wage is actually a big amount of money. It's a big can make a big difference to them and their families. And just because we get more senior and we earn more money, we shouldn't forget the struggles that some people go through and how hard it can be. And by abolishing Band 1 and paying people a bit more money, I think was a way to recognise some of that. Do
you think that, given that you had such a normal upbringing in the sense of money-wise, I assume from what you said, it wasn't necessarily an affluent family that you come from.
No.
Do you think that, given that, your role now and that you do earn, what's fair to say is a decent salary, do you think that's really grounded you and really made you appreciate the money that you do earn, but also appreciate other people's positions?
Yeah, I do. I'll say it without sounding like a bit twee, because I do earn a good salary. I still struggle today when if I'm paying for something and I can't tap it, chip and pin, anything above 30 quid, I'm thinking, that's a lot of money. And it might sound bizarre because, in the great scheme of things, you might think £30 isn't a lot of money. But that still sticks with me, that I still value the importance of a few quid.
Yeah, of course.
And that's why I think it's important when we do these jobs that we never lose sight of the fact that the struggles that we might have gone through, people are going through. People do struggle financially, as some of us have, and we shouldn't think because we earn more money today that we ignore that people are going through that.
Yeah, no, definitely. To be fair, for me, it's only really been in the last kind of probably 3 years that, since I started even actually when I think the year before I had to borrow money to pay rent, you know. And so, you know, it's really probably the last 6 months is where my life started to change, and, you know, I've moved into a bigger house and so on. But, you know, it's crazy how kind of, you know, 2-3 years, not a long time. Well, it's probably about 3 years, probably around this time 3 years ago, actually, that I probably borrowed that money to pay for rent. And it's crazy how not that far back things were so different, and that you're not actually that far away. You're only a few mistakes away from being back there.
That's why I think the importance of leadership is knowing and building those people around you that you can rely on. I think that people often say that leadership roles or chief exec roles are often quite lonely. And you know, to some degree they are, because you are the most accountable person. But I think if you've got the right people around you, personally and professionally, you can share some of that. You've got to learn who you can trust along the way. You know, when I left Barts, and the HR director there, Michael Pantlin, gave me a really good piece of advice and said, you know, if ever you don't know the answer to something or you're just struggling, he said, go somewhere, lock yourself away and give me a ring. And that was 6-7 years ago.
Yeah.
And I still remember that advice.
How many times I was going to say, how many times you called him?
2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
Really good guy, really good leader, someone who can actually see, that trait is so important.
Yeah, I think that's so important. You know, you get these people that put this kind of facade on that they know it, and almost like it's a discredit if they don't know the answer to something. And I think it's almost the opposite. I think if you can be vulnerable enough, or you can show that weakness that I don't know everything and I need to find the answer out to that, or you know, let's work through it together type thing. I think that's such an important quality, because people can see through bullshit, and to say you know everything simply is bullshit.
I think people value humility. Leaders. So if I'm standing in front of 500 of our staff doing our monthly staff briefing, and I stumble across a few words, or whatever, it happens. People aren't expecting me to be a robot, and I'll no doubt make mistakes along the way, and slip up from time to time, no doubt, because that's part and parcel of being a leader who's working their way through big jobs.
Yeah, of course.
Staff, I think our staff value the human side of their leaders. I hate that term management, because people use it in a negative way, as in it's us versus management. People, I think, got to see more of a human side about their managers, and not see a robotic leader in the way that people think that you have to be when you become a leader. I think it would break down so many barriers between a workforce, that people could then just actually he's just like one of us, Okay, he's got a bigger job, he gets paid more money, but ultimately, he still wants to have a beer at the end of the week. He still wants to go out at the weekend. He still goes shopping like everybody else.
Yeah.
All those human things that perhaps people almost forget that you have to do, just because you're, a chief exec or a managing director or whatever.
Yeah, sure, makes sense. So, when you got your CEO role, you get these people that have destination mindsets that are working their way, will always be successful because of the way they think, the way they act, what they consume in terms of content, exercise, whatever it might be, right? But a lot of the time when they get there, it's a bit of an anticlimax. Yeah. How did you find that when you got to the kind of the top role within the NHS? How did you feel when you got there?
Yeah, it's certainly not an anticlimax. I still think there's so much to do, so much to learn as well. I mean, when you pass your driving test, they say that you only really learn once you've passed, because you're having to deal with it on your own rather than with someone sitting next to you pushing the brakes and all that sort of stuff. I wanted to do the job after I was acting into the role for 6 months. The job came up on a permanent basis, and I thought, why not? And there was part of me that really wanted the job, and the other part that thought, well, they won't give it to me.
Yeah.
And if I don't try, and then someone else comes in, I'll be thinking, well, I could do that. So I thought.
Do you think if you didn't get it, do you think you'd have had to have left?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I always said in my head, if someone else gets it, I will absolutely support whoever gets it. But I would probably be honest with them to say, do you want to bring in your own team? And so I wouldn't have said I would have left, because I still believe I came here to Medway to improve it. That's what I wanted to do. It's my local hospital as well. And now in the chief exec role, I feel really determined to get Medway to a sort of a good CQC rating next time round. And I'm not even suggesting that I would leave then, but you might get to a point where you're feeling a bit more accomplished in what you came here to do.
Yeah, sure. So what you've set out, your personal goals and what you want to do in terms of to improve Medway, you're still on that journey, and you still need to fulfill that, to feel like, I suppose, to feel that you fulfilled what you wanted to do.
Yeah, I mean, whenever I've gone into a role anywhere, you kind of set out what do you want to do here. I think a lot of us came here because we want to make Medway better, but tangibly want to get to a good CQC rating.
Yeah.
Even when we get there, there is another step on.
Yeah, of course.
You keep pushing yourself, thinking, actually, let's just keep going. Let's keep making it even better. And I don't have a career ambition past this job. I'm not thinking, I'll stay here for 2 years and then I'll go somewhere else. I'm wanting to get to a better place for the organisation.
Makes sense. Okay, so something different then. So you're really active on social media. So Twitter and LinkedIn especially, right? Maybe Facebook and Instagram, I don't know. But those two definitely. Why do you feel that's important, especially in this day and age? Why is it important?
Probably a couple of things. So I do use LinkedIn, Twitter for work, Facebook, Instagram, generally just to keep in touch with sort of friends.
Yeah.
But very sort of restricted.
Yeah.
Let's come on to that in a sec. But why is it important? I think a couple of things. One, I think it gets very quick information out there to a very large group. But I think it's about how do people see that human side of you as well. Whenever it's not about just promoting the good stuff either. The nice thing, but equally not so nice thing sometimes with social media, is that people can get directly in touch with you. So I get lots of messages on Twitter talking about the good care they've received at the hospital, but you also get some people who contact you directly with examples of not so good care. And you've got to be able to, if you're going to put yourself out there and encourage people to engage with you on social media, you've got to be able to take the positive stuff equally and deal with the lesser positive stuff.
And you always reply to everything?
Always reply, as best I can. LinkedIn, what I don't reply to, should be clear, is if I get like genuine sales type stuff, which I know are just generic stuff, I don't tend to reply to those.
Well, the copy and paste jobbies, yeah?
Yeah, I don't tend to apply. If it's something that's personal to me, and it's directed to me only, then I will always respond. If it's a generic thing, I don't tend to reply.
Yeah, makes sense.
I think about social media, think about workforce. I think it's good for our existing workforce, but equally we know, from an age profile perspective, the NHS has an older workforce proportionally, certainly at Medway, and younger people in the main tend to use social media. Good research tells you that, and it's a good way to keep in touch with new students who might be following their university Twitter page. They might then see Medway as an attractive choice for a role post university. We do a lot of work with Mid-Kent College on social media because we know that we get a lot of their students coming here after they have finished their study. So I think you can use it for all sorts.
Yeah, makes sense. And with regards to kind of influential people then that you've worked with? So you mentioned your previous, was it the executive director of HR at Barts, was it? Yeah, Barts. So that's someone that's influential in your career. And you mentioned before as well your first manager. What else outside of not maybe personal in your personal life? What's kind of been influential for you, or a person that's been influential for you?
I guess I'm very lucky. Like, I've got a stepmom.
Yeah,
who's always been very, very supportive. For 25 years or something. Always been very supportive. My sisters are very supportive. I guess more so, on a sort of very personal level. Josh at home is always, very supportive, and the people who are closest to you get to hear all the good things that are going on.
Of course.
Always there for you when you have those difficult days. Pour your glass or something, or run your bath, or those little things that you just value when you're doing a job like that.
Yeah. I've got that in Jordan, obviously, where if I've had a bad day, she's like my verbal, my verbal punch bag as such. Where I can, just vent to her, and she just, she's really good at just listening and taking it, and even if it's perhaps not even probably the important bit. I don't know if you find this as well, but not even necessarily kind of giving any advice back, but just letting you vent, and then almost saying, "Are you done now?"
Yeah, I so important though, Jack. Josh always says to me, "How was your day?" And I just say, "Yeah, it's fine." And then it'll take me a little while to then start to sort of tease out why it might not have been so great. But as you say, sometimes it's just listening. Like I said, those moments where you can just sit down, rant for 10 minutes, pour a drink, get another one. You need that type of person around you who understands the job that you're doing, and it will be alongside you when all the praise is happening, but equally doesn't move when you get some of the negative stuff as well.
Of course. Yeah, makes sense. Well, let's address the elephant in the room as well, because you're a chief executive running an NHS trust during a global pandemic. So, first question, when was the last time you slept? And second, how are things?
I always say sleeping is fine, because you're so tired when your head hits the pillow that you just go to sleep.
Yeah.
So, I mean, listen, we can say how hard it is, and there are moments when, of course, you're doing lots of planning and you're thinking about 5 or 6 different things to make sure everything is where it needs to be, and you've got good plans in place. Most importantly, if you did see sort of spikes in the number of patients that we were seeing, but I mean, when you think about staff, front line wearing PPE, it's heavy, it's uncomfortable. It pales into insignificance in terms of what we might be dealing with in a sort of leadership role. Our role then becomes about how do we make it better and easier for them. And I know you probably expect me to say that, but I genuinely mean, let's ask them, what do they want from us? Let's not assume that they want pizzas and cakes and cans of coffee. It might be what they want in the immediate term, but we're also thinking about what might they need when all of this is over at some point.
Yeah, sure.
This support, someone to talk to.
Yeah. Is it difficult because I assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, I assume that, well, how many people are you responsible for?
So we've got 4,500.
4,500 staff, that you're ultimately responsible for. And I assume that the majority of that workforce is clinical workforce, whether it be nurses, doctors, surgeons, etc. Yeah. How is it? Obviously, you're not. You haven't got a medical degree. You're not a clinician yourself. How is it leading an organization that is primarily that is the service, but you couldn't do that job yourself because for 2 reasons you're not qualified, but for the other reason that's not your job. So how do you find that leading an organization that is the role, but you're not?
Yeah, I don't consider myself leading a bunch of doctors or nurses or therapists. My role is leading 4,500 people who are all human.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't categorize them by the job title that they have. Is it hard leading a bunch of doctors? Well, no, because I've got a medical director, great medical director. His primary job is to be their professional lead. My job is to work alongside him and vice versa. He becomes my medical expert, doesn't he, on anything technical?
Yeah.
Most of the time, people aren't expecting me to be a technical person when it comes to being able to perform what the doctors do or what our nurses do. What they're looking for is good. Does he listen?
Yeah.
Does he act on what we tell him? Do we have confidence that he's got the right plans to help us get to where we need to get to, particularly, as you say, in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic?
Mm. So does that make it hard, though, to initially build credibility with these people?
I don't think so, because I think people recognise the chief executive role in the NHS as being sort of the most senior person.
Mm.
I don't think it makes it difficult because people recognise the role.
And you have credibility by being in that role anyway, because you wouldn't be in the role if you didn't prove
credibility. I think you have positional power.
Sure.
Sure. I think you earn credibility.
Of course.
By doing the things that I've mentioned. Big thing for me, as you know, is visibility. I think you've got to get out there. People got to see you, and not see you with a camera following you. Just see you, talking, listening, better understanding things. I think if you can do that, I think the clinicians particularly start to respect you. And then again, I spent time shadowing some of our anaesthetists and surgeons.
Okay.
Get donned up into some theatre scrubs.
I had to be going to theatre scrubs 3 weeks ago. Jordan had an emergency C-section, but it's just incredible, like just the slickness of it all. It's just
teamwork, isn't it? They're amazing.
Incredible.
Yeah. And to see it, firsthand, shadowing one of the doctors, it's inspiring to watch how they do their day job. Equally, they say, "Well, we couldn't do your job," and I think that's what the beauty of that respect is. That that respect is, I couldn't do your job and you couldn't do mine. Yeah, and I think that's how you start to build the credibility.
Makes sense. So how would you describe your job then? What's your day-to-day role?
I don't think any 2 days are ever the same. I think you can
not at the minute anyway. Definitely not.
I think you can start the day thinking, I'm going to sit through a series of meetings around certainly COVID, a lot of planning for today, planning for a month's time, planning for 3 months' time, 6 months' time. So there's a lot of that at the moment, as you would imagine. A lot of conference calls with all different partners across the whole system. So mental health, the social services, the council. So there's a lot of that at the moment. And lots of briefings as well. So we've got lots of briefings with our regional team, your Care Quality Commission. So that kind of makes up the day. And then alongside that, you've got what might be the business as usual side. So meeting with the executive team, trying to get out and be visible. We've got our financial side, obviously, to consider big capital program over the next couple of years. So you've got lots of kind of different plates spinning all at the same time, and you need to know a little bit about almost everything that's going on. Because quite rightly, people ask you about anything.
Sure. So this is one thing that I struggled with because I went from being just a top sales guy within the company I previously worked for, to then owning and managing and running owning a business, running a business and managing a team. So I went from literally having just being responsible for my billings, how much I made the company in terms of money, to organizational responsibility, and the kind of analogy that I use is it's like an orchestra where you're the person at the front waving your sticks around. It might not look like you're doing much, but without you, it all falls apart. Do you resonate with that?
Yeah, I do. And I think people don't, it's really hard to explain what the role is because you're doing your part of your role is to bring the team together. So your analogy of an orchestra is right. You're asking people to bring in different things at different times to create this perfect tune. And some days everyone's out of tune and it's really difficult. Other days it plays beautifully.
Yeah.
I think that's the hardest thing, is to really embrace the good days, but also accept that when you're having a sort of bad day or things are happening, you don't become a bad team overnight. Things happen, and you have to accept that in healthcare, as I said, we work in a people business and people make mistakes. Our job, I think, my job is to make sure that we become an organisation that doesn't beat people up for making mistakes.
Well, I think doing that just creates more mistakes, because then people hide the mistakes they've made, right?
Oh, without doubt. We know, certainly in healthcare and social care, we've seen, sadly, lots of examples where that culture has existed where people didn't feel that they could speak out, and that's put patients at harm, hasn't it? In years gone by, and we saw a mental health program recently where you saw that happening, and it was tolerated. Now I'm really clear, I think, and try and get that message out to staff. I want people to speak up. I want people to tell me what's going on. Good, bad. I want to hear it, because if we hear it, we can do something about it.
Yeah.
We're going to be the organisation that we want it to be. We've got to embrace that way of being across the whole hospital.
Yeah, makes sense. How are you doing for time, by the way? Because I know it's 2 and we had it scheduled in for
about 5 minutes, yeah?
5 minutes, yeah. Okay, cool. Right, so I'll just kind of get on to I've got one final question. I said to you, I didn't want to send you over the questions because I didn't want to be scripted, and I said they're all pretty normal, but I have got one left field one that hopefully I don't throw you off too much with. So my penultimate question then is you've got a lot of responsibility, you've got a lot of pressure. What, in your personal life, what are your hobbies? What do you do to relax and unwind and mentally escape and do for your mental health?
Yeah, so really important, definitely mental health. Physical health definitely is important. So running, I do a fair bit of running, not far, normally like 5 or 6K.
Yeah,
so enough to sort of escape for half an hour or so. I would say I go to the gym, but I don't really do very much other than sort of run and row and that sort of stuff. Anything to get your mind for a little while. I'll be listening to music. I would say probably very bad.
Who's your favourite?
Jack, I can't disclose that because I'll lose all credibility with your listeners. I'll tell you the last song that I downloaded. There you go. Hang on, let's have a look.
See, I like everything. I like stuff from Queen to Stormzy.
Yeah, mine is more sort of dance, pop, chart type stuff.
Right, yeah.
So there we go. I was listening to David Guetta, was the last person I was listening to.
Oh, there we go. So quite mainstream then, yeah?
Yeah. But yeah, sort of music like that, I think definitely is good for sort of winding down.
Nice, cool. Well then, the final question. Right, so hypothetical situation.
Yeah.
So you're no longer the chief executive of an NHS organisation. You are now the chairman of a global consumer products organisation. You've just come up with a product that potentially, it's like an iPhone, but for now it's potentially going to change the world, right? But you've got to get the right team in place to bring this to market, to lead the team or to lead the organisation and sell it. So you've got 3 hires left to make on your board. You've got to hire a chief marketing officer. You've got to hire a chief commercial officer or a sales director, whatever you want to call them. And you've got to hire a chief executive. Who are your 3 people? They can be dead or alive, and why?
They have to be real people.
Yeah, of course they do. Like, they can be celebrities. They don't have to be people you've worked with necessarily, but like dead or alive.
Oh, good. Okay. I thought you were asking me to choose from people that I've worked with.
No. That would be, yeah.
Horrible. Okay. Okay, so commercial, you said, yeah?
Yeah, like a sales director.
Yeah, okay, I'd have Deborah Meaden.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Marketing.
Why Deborah Meaden, first of all?
I like she's feisty.
Yeah.
Get to the point. Yeah, really like Deborah Meadham.
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
Marketing. Or maybe Richard Branson.
Yeah.
He's a bit of a king of marketing, isn't he?
Yeah.
And then chief exec. Oh, who would I have as the chief exec? Oh, I'll pick the best chief exec that I've worked with. So I'll pick Leslie Dwyer.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll pick our previous chief exec.
Amazing.
Now.
There we go, mate. And you're the chairman, so you're you're in charge. Well, technically, well, sometimes.
Yeah,
indeed. Cool. Well, it's been a pleasure, mate, and thank you so much for joining me for the last kind of however long it's been. I don't even know. It's flown by.
It has. Hey, listen, thank you, and congratulations.
Thank you, mate.
You're looking not as tired as I thought you would.
No, so I think the first week was hard because Jordan does so much for the family. Yeah. And where she had an emergency C-section, we hadn't planned for her being out of action, like literally bedbound for 10 days. She was in the end, like where she couldn't do anything. She was in so much pain and stuff. So the first 10 days were really hard. The first couple of days were really hard, but as I got used to it, but it just makes you so admire what she does for us all, because without her, like, I couldn't do what I do without her, because she really is the pillar of the family. And I say that I'm the MD of the business, she's the MD of the house, and in Ham she's in charge.
Yeah, no, it's good. That's a nice way of thinking about it.
Yeah, no, cool. Right, well, thanks, mate. I'll let you get back to it. All the best with everything, and we'll catch up soon. All right.
Yeah, you're a good man, Jack. See you later.
Cheers, mate. Bye.